ago, the Central Bank of Nigeria signed a $2.5 billion currency swap agreement with the People's Bank of China to facilitate trade between the two countries and enhance foreign reserve management. This was an attempt to buffer dollar shortage, which unfortunately is still a subject of discourse today. Well, let's see through the eyes of the head of fixed income at Chapel Hill, Denham, Mr. Oladipo Ajayi, as he talks to us on this. Good to have you, Mr. Ajayi. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
Good morning. So talking about this currency swap, this was actually aimed at providing adequate local currency liquidity to Nigerian and Chinese industrialists and other businesses, thereby reducing the difficulties encountered in the search for third currency. Would you say that objective has been met?
Well, just like what you said earlier, this contract was signed like about 3 years ago, and the main motive is to actually reduce the ease at which both countries actually transact, and also to further help the reserve management of both countries. But if we look at it critically, the basic of the contract was a 750 billion naira against a 15 billion yuan. And as we speak today, like we have not been able to actually draw down up to 25, even 20% of the amount. It tells you that if you look at that from that volume, it means that the transaction has not been very, very successful.
How is this contract supposed to affect the average Nigerian in everyday transactions?
Well, the contract, the main motive for actually going into this contract is, if you know critically, most of these developing nations, knowing fully well that Africa is still a fertile ground that's trying to actually establish their footprint in Africa. And that's one of the things that China is actually trying to do. And Nigeria is actually the third country that actually embarked on the same road, just behind South Africa and Egypt. So the effect is so that Nigerians can actually transact directly with the China counterparts in a very easy transactional contract. So before now, you still need to convert into a dollar, then convert into a yuan before you can actually transact. But with the establishment of that bilateral agreement, so the transaction is meant to actually make a transaction easier for most Nigerians that are actually importing from South Africa, from China. And in the same vein, also make a transaction easier for Chinese that are actually transacting directly with Nigerians.
Not been able to draw down, I think you said about 70%. What were the hindrances? What stopped us?
Sincerely speaking, if you look at it critically, the totality of what we are supposed to draw down is about 15 billion yuan. And as we speak, as at April this year, all we have been able to draw down is still less than 2 billion yuan. So it tells you that, and I think one of the things that we need to actually consider is the volatility of our currency. Because as when this transaction was actually signed, the conversion rate as at that day was about 306.72. That's 306 naira 72 kobo to $1 at that day, and it's 48 naira to a yuan. But if you consider how naira has behaved since then, you will understand the reason why I think this transaction is actually on hold, because I think they need to do more of a repricing on this contract. And at the same time, I think that the CBN also needs to actually up their game around this, and also need to maximize this window. Because if all we have done is less than 2 billion out of 15 billion drawdown, it means that we are not actually sensitizing people around this. And most of our exporters, importers, they are not actually maximizing this window seriously.
So when you say they need to tell our exporters, what are the exporters supposed to do? Are they supposed to go to it? I mean, first of all, you still need to get the yuan first. So what is that highlight or enlightenment that you think the exporters should, the information they should have to be able to maximize this platform?
I think the information, I think they just like what they did when they were trying to sensitize people around the availability of dollars in the bank. I think the banks need to be more aggressive around this because, and I think to aside being aggressive and informing people of the availability of this window, the CBN also needs to be more aggressive about actually selling or allowing importers that are actually transacting directly in China to actually be able to use this window. Because it's another thing for you to actually sensitize people, it's another thing for you to ensure that the availability of those things. Because based on the contract, it shows that the fund is available. It's just for us to draw down on the fund. So we need to actually work on it, and I mean the CBN need to actually ensure the availability of those funds so that importers from China that are actually transacting in China, they should be able to actually access the fund.
All right, how is this swap supposed to impact our external reserves?
Yeah, before now, you know, if you need to actually import anything from China, you need to convert to dollar. And from dollar, actually now, you have to now to convert to whatever currency you are actually transacting in. And in this instance, so what it means that you need to convert to dollar and now convert to yuan. And that's more like a third currency transaction, and there's a transactional cost on this. And aside that as well, what it would do is supposed to actually preserve the reserve. So, because what it means is that you can draw down on this transaction without actually affecting the reserve, immediate effect on the reserve. Because as at the time the transaction was signed, it was a naira for yuan, not dollar for yuan. So it means that whenever we draw down on that line, what we will pay with is a naira, not a dollar. So in that sense, it preserves our dollar reserve, and at the same time can help us to actually meet other obligations with other countries that we are not in this sort of agreement with. So the end game is to help preserve the reserve while we are actually also increasing our trade transaction with our counterparties, like most especially China.
All right, so do you think that the CBN should maybe go back to the drawing table and have this conversation again? It's been over 3 years.
Yeah, truly. I can remember when these news came to the market in 2018. Most analysts feels it's actually a laudable one, and the euphoria was high in the market because we all feel that it will affect the market positively, and it will help to actually stabilize our currency. So I think along the line, I guess CBN dropped the ball along the line one way or the other. But I think that we need to actually rekindle this transaction. We need to refresh it with People's Bank of China. And because what that would do is that it will help us to preserve our currency and also help to actually strengthen our relationship with China and our trade capability with China. So I think it's a very good transaction. And I feel that the CBN needs to actually refresh the transaction with People's Bank of China.
Okay, but what would this do to the demand for dollars?
So this will actually reduce the demand for dollar, because what this simply means is that if we look at the data, Nigeria is like the second largest, biggest importer from China. If you want to look at it from in Africa, we are currently doing like about a tenth of the whole transaction that the whole the continent is actually doing with China. So it tells you that most time we need to convert our dollar to yuan before actually transacting with China. But if we can trade directly with China, what that will do to us is that it will preserve our reserve and help to actually stabilize naira. So it will help a great lot to actually stabilize our reserve if we can actually refresh the transaction.
Yeah, but you know, Mr. Dipo, another thing is in Nigeria, once attention goes to this, then we'll start looking for yuan, and then is yuan really available in the country? Is it accessible, or will it become another dollar? That will also be another thing for the CBN to deal with if they actually want to go back to the discussion of this currency swap.
Yeah, I get the angle at which you're looking at it, and but one thing is that if the CBN can make it available for people to actually transact, I think it will actually help seriously. Because one of the problems we are having currently is the paucity of dollar liquidity in the market is actually one of the reasons why we are seeing our currency implementing this much. And I think if there's a substitute to a dollar, it can actually reduce the level at which our currency is currently depreciating in the market. And if you look at it, most of those people that are putting pressure on the currency from the autonomous market are mostly importers that cannot actually access the CBN window. But if the CBN can create those windows for such importer in a way that since you guys are actually importing from countries like China, and we already have existing agreement with China where you can actually we can actually draw down on our existing land with them. And I'm sure that will reduce the pressure and create liquidity for yuan in the market. One thing is that you don't necessarily need to trade it on the parallel market. But however, you can trade in an official market but trading in an official market simply means that the CBN need to actually up the game to actually ensure that they can bring liquidity to the table anytime there's need for such.
Thank you so much, Mr. Oladipo Ajayi, the head of fixed income at Chapel Hill. And thank you and enjoy your weekend.